Now we're seeing the governor at the podium up in Hartford. Let's go there.
Good evening. I want to go through a few issues of concern and give a few updates, and then I want to talk to you about what is clearly the #1 issue for everyone in Connecticut tonight, and that's when is my power coming back on. A few things before I get to that. The Lieutenant Governor and I spent the morning with Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano. She came here to see firsthand the damage that this storm has caused. I took the time that she was here to do two things. First, I made the case to her that the emergency declarations that have been granted for the counties along the shore need to be extended statewide. Our state was hit hard, and our residents need and deserve the assistance that those declarations can provide. The second thing I did with her was to make the case that Connecticut needs to get its fair share of resources from FEMA, and I am confident that that is and will continue to happen. The Lieutenant Governor and I also visited Rensselaer. Actually, you didn't get there. I'm sorry. I visited Rensselaer Field. She was continued to run the municipal call after I had to leave. I had the opportunity to see the central location from which the National Guard is distributing food, bottled water, cots, blankets, and other commodities they're providing to our residents through our cities and towns. I wanted to thank them for their work, and I told them that we'd be getting more assistance from FEMA. I also spoke with the President today, once personally, and a second time on a call with our state's municipal leaders. The President has been very clear. He wants the federal government to find a way to say yes, and he has been delivering on that. Another note, earlier today I reported a gas leak in Milford that had caused a temporary but long-term shutdown of 95 in both directions. The fire is out. The DOT is currently inspecting the bridge on the northbound side to make sure that it is safe. The fire was caused by a transformer that exploded and dropped a live power line on the bridge. The line burned through the bridge to a gas main, causing a fire. While 95 has since been reopened, the ramp for exit 37 northbound is closed. Now let me mention a few other things. The first one relates to FEMA. There is help available from FEMA, various types of assistance for individual residents. To register to get that assistance, I urge you to call the phone number for residents that you can call is 1-800-621-FEMA. 1-800-621-FEMA. There is a line for people with speech and hearing disabilities. That number is 1-800-462-7585. The line is open from 7 a.m. until 10 p.m., 7 days a week. Carbon monoxide poisoning is still a major concern. Of the 29 reported cases to the Department of Public Health, 26 have been caused by generator exhaust. Do not run a generator indoors, and do not run it in a garage that's attached to a house. That's what's causing these carbon monoxide backups into the houses and causing people to become ill. Death follows fairly quickly after a long-term exposure to CO. So please be more careful out there. Last night, train service was restarted between Stamford and Grand Central Station. We have waived fares for tomorrow for those commuters that use that train service. If our tests are successful, we are hoping to extend service to New Haven tomorrow. The U.S. Department of Transportation has approved the state's request for an immediate $2 million in emergency funding for infrastructure repairs in Old Saybrook, West Haven, and Bethel. There is also a boil water advisory for about 9,000 residents as a result of possible contamination. Let me stress that the vast majority of water is perfectly fine. To put it into context, the advisory only applies to 0.31% of Connecticut's drinking water. Please go to www.ct.gov/Sandy to see if you fall under that advisory, or call 1-860-509-7270. I'll repeat that, 860-509-7270. Let me also remind everyone who's watching, listening, or who will later read about this press conference something else that is important. If you sell a product, if you pretend to sell a product, or if you plan on trying to gouge or scam people in Connecticut in any way, I want to make sure that you hear this. If you do that, we will find you and we will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. Citizens, please be careful about scammers. If people are knocking on your door offering services, make sure you check them out before you give them any money at all, or for that matter, allow them to commence work. Permits are still required for work. There are 2 points I want to make that pertain to wires. The first is, please be careful around downed wires. They are a life-threatening hazard. The second is, again, please leave the line workers who you see working alone, leave them alone. Let them do their jobs. We've had a few reported incidences of people yelling at them or stopping their work to ask questions. Folks, it's not their fault. They didn't cause this storm. They're working as hard as they can. Please let them do their jobs. Having said that, I certainly understand people's frustrations, and I share them. What is most frustrating to me is that I'm hearing some of the same complaints I heard last year. I think the one that bothers me the most is that information that utility companies are giving us up here in the Emergency Operations Center in terms of how many crews are in each town and where those crews are. That information is often not lining up with what mayors or first selectmen are saying is going on in their towns or what they believe is actually happening. I've asked for a detailed explanation of that disconnect. Look, our state and our country got walloped in this storm. That's a reality. At last count, 82 people were confirmed dead in our country as a result of this storm, including 4 in Connecticut. The Jersey Shore has been changed forever. New York City's transportation system and a big portion of Connecticut's was shut down. An entire neighborhood in Queens, New York, went up in flames. Why do I say all this? Because the storm that just caused all that grief and destruction ended less than 72 hours ago. So while I share frustration and impatience with those of you who don't have power, and I certainly know what you're experiencing, I think it's important to remember that this was a titanic event that only ended hours ago, not weeks, not days, beyond the day 3 where we are today. The utility companies have told us that they will have just about everyone's power back on by late Monday for UI and no later than Tuesday for CL&P. I have communicated to both companies in blunt fashion that I want them to do better than that, and I've told them we intend on behalf of our customers and our citizens to hold them accountable for their performance. I signed into law this past year a bill that is designed to hold the utility companies accountable for their performance when large numbers of people lose their power. Trust in the fact that that's exactly what we plan on doing. The new law says that if 10% of customers are out of power for longer than 2 days, then their utility provider will be subject to review by PURA. PURA is made up of 3 individuals who pass on various issues on regulation of those utilities. PURA will, therefore, be conducting in a post-event series of hearings the performance of the 2 large utilities. They can be subjected to financial penalties if their response was found wanting. I'm not saying that that's the case. In fact, in some ways, it's too early to tell, but I want every citizen of the state of Connecticut to know that there is a process to test that, and that process will be undertaken at an appropriate time. For now, I'm focusing on what we can do to get federal aid here, what we can do to help our municipalities recover, what we can do to help individuals access the help that they deserve under the FEMA declaration that's already been had. I'm working as hard as we can to also get the Small Business Administration up and running with the help that they can offer all businesses in the state of Connecticut. With that, I'll take a few questions.
Governor, we've been reliably informed that armed Department of Correction prison guards have been dispatched to Bridgeport to patrol the streets instead of state police. Can you confirm that? And if so, is it safe to send in people who are not actually trained police officers?
I don't. That's the first time I'm hearing that. I don't have any independent knowledge of it. We'll garner that information, and we'll get you an answer to that question.
I can tell you that the police union president says that he was in on a conference call and that that's what's happened.
Okay. Again, all I can tell you is I'm trying to be very respectful. It's the first time I'm hearing it. I promise you an answer. I've never let you down.
When you said the $2 million for the towns, is that $2 million each?
No, that's $2 million total. That's based on an emergency request we submitted. The secretary called me himself to say that he had signed off on that. Undoubtedly, we'll make additional requests. Undoubtedly, there'll be additional dollars coming. But to the communities that were covered, I wanted them to know that that money is forthcoming from the federal government.
What is the timetable for this money? Is it your understanding it could be weeks, months? I mean, obviously, FEMA money is very important. And how soon do you think we'll be able to get some of this relief money?
Well, with respect to the $2 million, we will expend when the secretary tells you that he signed it, we'll expend the money and reimburse ourselves or the communities in an appropriate way when the money comes in. Money is, goods and services are flowing from FEMA as we speak. This is entirely different than the other incidences that I've been involved with FEMA in the past. We got a pre-land declaration. We got an immediate declaration. I honestly, you know how hard I was on FEMA and the federal government the last time. I thought they, in some cases, were dragging their feet, were overly bureaucratic. I don't have that complaint, and we'll get whatever we need. I have the assurances of the president on that, of Secretary Napolitano, and quite frankly, the regional folks have been very good to work with.
You would hope that with her visit today that you would be able to extend past the 4 counties. How realistic is it to get the entire state?
I think we'll get all counties. I think if we have one county that we need to make to really accumulate some, or a county that may be more difficult to accumulate language, it might be Hartford County, just based on outages and things like that. But I also believe that they ultimately will reach it. I have no doubt that the other counties will reach it based on what I've heard or seen myself. But there is a process, and damages that are not necessarily as evident as a destroyed seacoast.
Governor, can you go into detail about the disconnect you just mentioned between the mayors and first selectmen and the power companies?
Well, the power companies, have a GIS system where each vehicle being used is being monitored. That system broke down for a period of time yesterday. I have now since seen maps generated that show the Bing from the GIS device, but then I'm hearing from mayors, well, that's not true, that those trucks aren't there. I'm not sure who's right and who's wrong, and I suspect in some cases, I'm looking at a static piece of paper, right? And I have no doubt that the Bing was there at one point, but it may not be there when the mayor goes out or the first selectman or the chief of public works goes out to check any of those things out. I've actually confirmed some things that mayors and the like have said. I've also found things that weren't true. And that's human nature. Everybody's on edge. Everybody wants things done. And the reality is it's very frustrating, I think, if you're a mayor, I've been in that situation, to have lines that are still down and roads that are still blocked. That's why earlier today, in what was, I think, an hour-and-a-half call with municipalities, I asked municipalities through their regions, the regions that they work through, to give me a list of dead-ended roads. So there's one thing to have a blockage on a road if you can get around it. If you can get around it, that's not the same high priority that a road that's been dead-ended. So by tonight, we'll have a complete list of dead-ended roads. Those will be our highest priority to relieve those to relieve any situation where someone's actually blocked in. Now, that is very different than having to go around, and I think everybody understands that. Having said that, we got to get these roads cleared.
Just quick follow-up.
Sure.
How many of those mayor/first selectman calls would you say, I don't want to say you're truthful, but you said some of them just turned out to be incorrect. About how many did you receive that were truthful?
First of all, I don't want to suggest that anyone's being purposefully deceptive. What happens, some of the mayors are running their own EOC operations. Some of the mayors and first selectmen are, in another place, that sort of thing, and information may not be as current. So that's what we're talking about. But I think it's some percentage. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what percentage it was.
The personal call with the president, was that just sort of a general how are things going, or was there a specific agenda that you went over?
We spoke for, 10 minutes or so, and he asked some questions about our recovery. He wanted to know how FEMA was doing. He wanted to know whether if there were any assets that we thought we needed that we had not received. He kind of had a checklist of things that he wanted to make sure that the federal government was living up to. Again, I don't have a criticism of the federal government's response here in Connecticut. It's been quite excellent, including their ability, as they say, to give some instant relief, and that's why it's important that people get on those numbers or get online and register.
I'm sorry, when was that call?
That was probably around 11:30 this morning, and then we had him on the call with municipals. I think that was a 1:30 call. So I think there were about 210 participants in that call. Yep, sure. Last one? Anybody? Nope. Then you're going to get your updates from the utilities, and we'll get our schedule out for tomorrow. It's a work in progress. Secretaries show up and things get changed, so we'll keep you informed. Thank you.
Good evening. Bill Quinlan for the Connecticut Light and Power Company. At CLMP, our restoration efforts continue to progress. And at this point, we've now restored service to over 500,000 customers. As the governor indicated, our primary focus is on clearing any remaining blocked roads throughout the state, and I will say we've to date already cleared thousands of such road blockages. And our second highest priority is focusing our attention on the remaining 225,000 customers who are currently without service. I should say very clearly that we understand the hardship associated with being without power, and we empathize with our customers in that regard. And one thing I can assure you of is that our employees are doing everything they can and everything within their power to restore as many customers just as quickly as we can. Earlier today, we announced our first global restoration projection, which covers the entire state, and we've said that we estimate that we will be substantially completed with our restoration by Monday or Tuesday of next week. At this point, I think we've got a very good understanding of the damage that's impacting our system or has impacted our system. And also, we continue to make very good progress with respect to the critical resources necessary to deliver on our projection, that being line workers. Earlier today, in fact, we have now gone over the 1,500 mark with respect to external line workers in the state. And you'll recall that early on I had indicated that we had made a request for 2,000 such workers. So we continue to make very good progress towards that goal. And this is a significant improvement over yesterday, where we had 1,080 external line workers within the state. We expect this critical resource to continue to ramp up. We have secured commitments for additional line workers that will come in tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after. And I do think we're going to get to a contingent that's going to allow us to finish this restoration on a very strong note. And finally, the governor indicated we had an opportunity. I had an opportunity to hear directly from some of our first selectmen and women and from mayors in the cities we serve. And we at this point have a good understanding for some of the issues that they see. And we've assured them, and we're going to follow through on this, that we're going to take each and every one of those concerns very seriously. We're going to run it to ground, and we're going to address the issue. And we've already begun that off of today's call. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions you have.
I believe all of the polling places will have power by Monday evening?
Yeah. So the short answer is yes. We are making very good progress against I believe it's 565 or so that are within CLMP service territory. We have fewer than 100 that are currently without power. It is on our high priority list, and we're also looking at backup generation options. So if there's a polling station or two or a handful that we don't think we're going to get to, we intend to site some temporary generation to ensure there's no impact on the election.
How serious are the concerns that some of your crew are being harassed? Is it just one or two isolated incidents?
Yeah, I actually have not heard of any instances of that occurring during this event now. The governor indicated he had, and I'm sure that's the case. That is a very serious issue for us from a number of different perspectives. That, first of all, distracts the crew from what they should be doing, which is restoring customers. Two, I think it's a safety issue. You know, these folks, like anyone else, are human. They've left their home, their families, and they're out doing the best they can to restore customers. I think it's just fundamentally unfair to be challenged by citizens who I understand the frustration. Believe me, I do understand the frustration, but don't take it out on the line workers.
Do you think people's expectations are a little unrealistic because of the fact they went through the last storm and so much has been done? In fact, someone had told us they just thought automatically things would be different this time
Yeah,
around.
I do think they are different. My own personal belief is our restoration thus far has been very strong. And I think if we sustain this momentum and drive it to the completion that we've targeted, you'll look back on this, and when you compare it against what other large utilities in the country can do, you would say that was a very strong restoration as well. Now, I also understand, like everyone else, that we're human and we want electricity, we want it now. Connecticut's citizens have high expectations. It's my goal and my responsibility to meet them. I mean, I personally am without power as well, so I understand this fully, but I do think we learned some things last year, and I think our response and our restoration are improved as a result of that.
Mr. Quinlan,
Yeah.
one of the viewers at NBC Connecticut asked a question, and I couldn't answer it. On Wednesday morning, outages, CLNP in Waterford, 49%. At the end of today, Thursday, is 58%.
Okay.
How, in the course of the 24 hours after the storm,
Sure.
72 hours after the storm, in fact,
Yeah.
has the number gone up?
Yeah, so it's probably one of two things. Sometimes there's incremental outages that occur as a result of day-to-day activity, whether it's a car hitting a pole or a tree coming down for whatever reason and taking out one of our distribution lines. So it could truly be a new outage, or, and this is very frequent during a large restoration such as this, we sometimes have to temporarily switch out a circuit that was previously energized or had power to it so that we could pick up a larger block of customers. So if it's switching, then it's a very temporary blip, if you will, on the overall customer outage.
That's really not unusual in
Very,
restoration.
very, very common. Will happen hundreds of times during the course of this week.
With your damage assessment completed,
Yes.
and your projection for a global restoration
Yes.
beginning of next week, are there either areas within the state or certain situations where people should perhaps manage their expectations on whether they're going to be in that 98%? I mean, because that's
Yeah.
still a
Yeah.
little more than 10,000 people who
Yeah.
are outside of the 98%.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm going to provide a couple of answers to it. So one of the things we are going to begin to publish are divisional, what we refer to as divisional restoration projections. So we're going to take that overall global restoration and we're going to give a more refined estimate for geographic areas within the state. And you're going to start to see those appear and be communicated to customers as early as tonight for the areas of the state, like the central portion of the state where the damage is lighter. So for those customers, when they get the new restoration, the more local restoration, that's the one that they should be planning around. In the harder hit areas of the state, I think you have to stick with the global restoration until we're in a position to roll out something more local and more specific to that area. And that specificity will increase as the week progresses. Right now it's a statewide, where they're going to break the state up into 4 geographic areas, so we'll be issuing those 4 geographic restoration projections. We'll then probably be issuing town-level restoration projections, and ultimately we'll get to what we refer to as an event level, which a particular customer, when they receive that, they'll have a projection as to when their power is going to be restored. And that's going to be based on having a lineman out in the field, dispatched to the site, and now we've got basically a professional or an expert view as to how long it's going to take. And that's generally, within a few hours of when they're actually going to receive their power. But the specificity of the projection will increase over time.
We also had some questions, speaking of specificity,
Yeah.
about the 98% figure. Is that
Sure.
98% of your customers or 98% of the peak of the power outage?
It's 98% of our customer base, and I think I've said approximately 98%.
Right.
It may well be lower than that.
Right.
But what we're saying there is there are instances in almost every large restoration where there are a handful of customers who are going to extend beyond that substantial completion date. Whether they're in a situation where the home is inaccessible or has been destroyed and you can't restore service, or they've never called in the outage, so we're not aware of it until we restore the circuit and all their neighbors have power and they're still without power. That would be like a new outage that comes up the last day. It could be a truly new outage. A car hits a pole the last day of a restoration. So there are a whole series of things that I think almost are to be expected that happen in all large events that create what we refer to as the tail of the restoration. So it's beyond substantial completion. Now, I will say, and this is something we've been doing now at CLMP, and we're doing it very aggressively in this case, is what we refer to as service work. So if there are outages between our system and a customer's home, we have over 500 service crews. These are licensed electricians who will come in, address those local, very local outages, so that when we re-energize our distribution system, we're not getting calls that my neighbor's got power and I don't. So that's we're putting the full court press on service work this outage to trim that tail and have just as few as possible outages extend beyond our substantial
But if it's 2%
completion.
of your customer base at 1.2 million, that means
Yeah.
it could be about 24,000 customers.
It could be.
Yeah.
It could be. Our hope and expectation is it won't be. And I have time for one more question before I turn it over. Yeah.
Mr. Quinlan, the governor mentioned these penalties that you could face at some point down the
Yes.
road. In light of what you have to go through dealing with an emergency like this, do you think that these penalties are fair in light of what you're up against?
Well, fundamentally, I nor my company are opposed to having, a framework of performance. What are society's expectations, our regulators' expectations about how we're going to respond to such an event? I do think there needs to be flexibility in those standards because there are so many variables that impact the duration of an outage, how quickly you restore the blocked roads, which are some of the things that are being talked about with respect to performance standards, that not all outages are differently. So the thing that would concern me is if it was formulaic and it didn't provide for variability among outages. Having been pretty involved in the development of these standards, through the hearing process and the technical meetings, I think Pure is on the right track. They're focused on the right things. They're considering the flexibility and factoring that in. So to me, it seems the state's taking an appropriate approach to the development of performance standards. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Tony Marone, Senior Vice President, United Illuminating Company. Earlier this morning, Jim Torgerson, our CEO and President, announced our objectives for global restoration times to be able to have 95% of our customers back by the end of the day Monday. We've been working hard through the day today to meet those objectives. I believe Mr. Torgerson had laid out that we were hoping they'd be able to achieve between 20 and 25,000 customer outage reductions by the end of the day, and we're on track for that. As of just walking into the meeting here, I believe we were just about at 13,000 towards that goal for the day. And the way the work comes in as packets of work and so forth, I feel pretty good about our ability to hit that target for today. We'll see as the night goes on, but clearly there's a lot of effort that's going on as we start to move out of the make safe road clearing town priority phase of our project and our plan and move really more into restoration. And so we're continuing to work very aggressively towards those goals. I think we're making the progress we need. Right now, I believe we're just over 95,000 customers still without power. I believe it was 95.6 was the last number that I had seen. I expect that to go down. There was a question about polling and polling places. This information may be a few hours old now, but last I had checked, out of 192 polling stations within the UI's area, we had 143 that were confirmed with power, 25 without power, and there were 24 that we were still verifying. Sometimes there's a mix-up between the address we might have received and the meter data, so some verification there. So I would expect that there will be a combination of that remaining 24 that are on or off. Clearly, I think similar to what CLNP had said, it'll be our objective to make sure that there are no issues with respect to polling, and so we'll continue to pursue that over the next day or so. Additionally, I would like to take and just make a comment about something that the governor had spoken about earlier with regard to UI or crews out there in the field working, and some of the things that are going on out there. And there's been comments made that UI and/or our employees are not working hard, or that we do not care about our customers, or even worse, that we don't care about customers who live in certain areas that we serve. And for us, this is very upsetting because it's just not true. And such statements, they're offensive to the many dedicated employees who are in the process of restoring customers right now as quickly as possible. These are employees that live in our cities and our towns, including Bridgeport. They're also living without power. Many of them have not seen their families for the last 4 days as they're working diligently to restore power for all, and that continues. We at UI, we have a plan. It's a plan that it's been agreed to by our towns. It's been modified after the last storm. Our regulators have been involved in it, and we've been up here talking to all of you about the plan so that everyone can understand what the plan is, how it would work, what the phases of the plan are. And we feel that we're executing that plan, that we've been updating the public daily, and we continue to do so, and we absolutely will. We're proud of our employees. We're proud of the work that they're doing. And we're also confident that after this storm, there'll be a variety of post-assessments. It's law now, but it would happen even if there wasn't a law. That PURA, that's part of their responsibility to do that, to make sure, did we do a good job? Did we follow the plan? And all of these things will be put forth. And we're confident that our performance is consistent with the plan, and certainly well above what other utilities in similar situations have or will achieve. I mean, if we look at our performance and our expectations about the estimated restoration times that we've provided earlier today, recall that this storm has about 30% greater outages for UI than Irene did. At its peak, we had just under 160,000 customers out during Irene, and we've had about 200,000 customers affected here. Yet our overall restoration plan has us actually achieving the same kind of targets in a shorter period of time. Clearly, they're aggressive standards, but we're also diligently pursuing them. We understand the frustration of not having power. It's little consolation to hear about some of these things I might have to say if you don't have power, because that's all you want is your power back. But I just want people to realize that we have experienced, dedicated people who are out there in the field day in and day out working long, hard days, and we're going to keep on doing that until we get done. And we all have felt the impact of this devastating storm, and we need to work together to be able to get over it, and that's what we're doing at UI. So with that, I'm happy to take a couple questions.
Where did those incidents occur?
Some of the incidents that have been reported to me have occurred in Bridgeport.
Do you think this is a reaction to the mayor's very public comments about restoration of Bridgeport?
I don't know that, but that certainly could be a factor. I think an interesting thing about Bridgeport, and I know that you all in the media have reported about Bridgeport and other cities and the frustrations that mayors and first selectmen have stated. Just a couple facts if we want to think just about Bridgeport. From 5 o'clock last night until 6 o'clock this morning, we restored just under 13,000 customers in Bridgeport. I think it was 12,874 might have been the number. But that's more customers than we actually serve in the towns of Derby, Woodbridge, and North Branford combined. When it comes to Bridgeport, walking into this meeting, Bridgeport has just over 41% of their customers without power. Neighboring towns around Bridgeport, Trumbull's at 72%, Fairfield's at 49%, Easton's at 82%. The resources and the commitment to Bridgeport is in no way anything less than everyone at UI giving it their all.
Was Mayor Fitch's statements then unfounded and irresponsible?
I think that his statements are what they are, and I think that the facts that I had just described are facts that are you cannot refute.
Will you be
What exactly happened? Can you lay that out? Were people throwing things, or was it yelling?
I had heard that people were yelling at our crews. Interestingly enough, at least one or several of our line crews that were out working in the field today, at least one of those individuals is a lifelong Bridgeport resident who's out there restoring power to his town and his community that he's lived at all of his life, and he's got people coming out throwing eggs at the truck and yelling at the crews. This is unacceptable, and it's uncalled for, and it's undeserved. And you know, you all can take and put us through the ringer as to whether or not we're doing a good job. But our employees are out there and they're working hard, and they should not be treated this way.
Have you requested police protection for your crews in Bridgeport?
I know late this afternoon there were conversations regarding that police protection, and I don't know what the final outcome of that was.
Will you be providing generators to the polling stations that you can't restore or shore power to?
Mark, I don't have a firm answer on that. I know it will be our plan will be to have those polling stations back on. I don't know that we have a backup plan for generators, but certainly that would be one option if we couldn't get power back on. But it's something that we're working right now.
Were police called to any of these incidents today?
I don't know if police were called. I know that our crews had called in, and we had made a conversation, with the mayor regarding this incident, and we're expecting that things will change.
How many interrupt work? How many interrupt work at all?
I don't know the details if it stopped work, but it certainly had an impact on work.
How many incidents are you aware of?
I'm aware of at least a few that had occurred today.
2, 3.
2, 3, yeah. Okay. Thank you all very much.